Hello YouTube, thought I'd do a quick video here. I have a little bit of time to check out this power supply more. If you remember, I did a video on my power supply was not working. This is the power supply that goes to the Retevis RT97 GMRS repeater. This is the power supply that came with it. This is the model number of the power supply. And it is 12 volt DC. Does 5 amps output, or this power supply can handle a 5 amp draw. I think if I remember right, this power supply does about 2 amps. So to be honest with you, it's probably a lot easier to go get another 12 volt. If your power supply goes out and you don't have a blue LED on, or your repeater is dead, as you can see there's a problem with this one, it turns on and off. We'll get to that in a minute. But if your power supply is dead, it's probably going to be the easiest to go get another 12 volt DC power supply and just take the end off the plug here, which is easy to do. A couple screws, you have to solder, so make sure you get the right plus and minus on the right pins. But you could easily take this off and then just go ahead and put on another 12 volt power supply that does a minimum of 5 amp. A good power supply that you could do that with would be a desktop computer power supply. You can buy them really cheap. This one is only 60 watt. So if you look up a desktop power supply, it only does about, you can buy the lowest wattage one, which I think is 150 watt, which will be plenty of power to run this repeater. That's honestly probably be the cheapest and fastest way than to try to fix this power supply. But I am going to show you some basic things that you can check. If you haven't noticed, my power supply keeps turning on and off, just like it did in the other video. Well, I found the problem, and sometimes in life it's the simplest things that end up being the problem, which is good. The problem with this power supply is my AC cord. No, I should probably elaborate more. I believe the prongs on the AC cord that plug in the socket are not making good connection. And that's why my light will turn on and off. Okay? See, nope, now it's on again. So how can we verify that? Well, easily. We could unplug this. And the good news is this is a standard cord. So any cord off a computer monitor, a desktop, laptop, will plug into this. But I don't want to do that yet. I want to show you another way if you really want to get technical and you want to find out if it's the cord or if it's something else. The way to check, if you have a voltmeter, we're going to put the voltmeter on AC volts. We're going to flip this over and we're going to measure the AC coming off this AC socket and going into the bridge rectifier. We're going to measure that AC and we're going to see what it says. Turn on the meter would help. $34 volts AC. Well, we know that's not right because this plugs into our US AC outlet, which is 120 volts. So I know there's something wrong there. So I know right off the bat, either there's a bad connection on the circuit board, which I've already checked and it looks good. So it's either the socket or the plug that goes in the socket. Oh, now it came back on. See the blue light came on over there? So let's check it again. $19 volts. Obviously not correct. So I'm going to guess and probably say it's probably the connectors on here are just a little bit big, and when you plug it in, it's not making a very good connection. That's what I'm going to say is probably the problem. So we're going to try a different cord. So let's try this cord. Here's the original. Here's the other cord. You can kind of see a difference. So it looks like there's more of a tight fit on the different cord. Let's try a different cord once. Well, look at that. She's coming on right away. All right. Flip it around. Now, for comparison reasons, let's check the AC voltage going into the bridge rectifier and see what we got. Look at that, 121 volts, just like it's supposed to be. Probably fixed the problem there. That's probably it. But what I'm going to do too is I think I'm going to kind of give you a basic overview of this power supply. Since I got it apart, there's a few things you can check really quick if you have a dead power supply. And that is one of the things you can check. There is a fuse, a solder-in fuse on this power supply. Let me unplug the cord. And you're probably wondering, well, the cord's unplugged. Why are the blue lights still on? Because we got this big filter capacitor that's holding a charge, and that will slowly discharge, and this light will slowly dim out. So that is normal. So as you can see, the light's dimming out. It's discharging this big filter capacitor. So there goes the light. Discharge. Now there is a solder type fuse on the AC side in this power supply. And that is right here. Now, it is marked on there. I believe it says 250 volt at 15 amp. I believe is what it says on there. So, if that fuse is open, then it's going to be, the power supply will be dead. There'll be no blue light. So you can check that fuse. The one way to check it real easily, if your power supply is dead, with the AC cord unplugged, we're going to find the two terminals on the other side, and that's going to be right here. We're going to do continuity check. We're going to put the meter on continuity. In my case, this meter has a buzzer. Not all meters will beep. And continuity, what that means is when you touch your meter leads together, you may hear that beeping noise. But if yours doesn't beep, it tells you how much resistance. So that since I'm shorting out my meter leads, it's reading the resistance of the probes, which is 0.6. Okay, I can turn off the beep and just go to ohms. So 0.001, pretty much a short. So one way to check that fuse is to take your meter and touch the two spots, and it should read 0.001. That means that fuse is good. Okay? So that's one thing you can check really quick if your power supply is dead. Again, this is for the Retevis RT97 GMRS repeater. You can check that fuse. Now to get this thing apart, I should have mentioned, you got to kind of pry the case apart, just to let you know that. It comes apart fairly easy, but you got to pry it apart, put a screwdriver in there and kind of pry it. That's how you get this thing apart. So another thing that we're going to kind of do some quick voltage checks on, and like I said, you can't really do a lot with this power supply. One, there's no schematic available. Two, it's cheap just to buy another power supply that's 12 volt, 5 amp, like I said in the beginning of the video. So there's not a lot of troubleshooting you can really do on this. It's just cheaper to buy another power supply. Or make sure your cord is okay. So try another cord. But if you want to really get into it more, we can check a couple spots here to kind of verify that the power supply is trying to work. If you don't have a blue light, there's a few things you can check. We'll plug this back in. You can see the blue light is back on. We're going to check the bridge rectifier. Remember, that's the part that I checked the AC. We got to go back to it. We got to turn the meter back to AC now. Okay. And if I check the AC going in, that's going to be 120 volts, like I said, because that's the AC from our outlet. Okay, 120. Now, if I want to check the bridge rectifier, how much DC is coming out, I got to put the meter to DC. And then we're going to check the DC. 170 volts DC. So that's how much that bridge is putting out. So if you don't have a blown fuse, quickly check there to see if you got 170 volts coming off that bridge. If you don't, then obviously, and if you got AC going in, but nothing coming out of the bridge, you got a bad bridge rectifier. Again, I don't know if you can buy that part. I'd have to look it up. There's a part number on the part. You may be able to order it separately. I would have to check it, but that's one quick check you can do. Another quick check you can do too is if that's okay, the fuse is good, you got power coming out of here, but you still have no blue light, well, and your repeater is dead, repeater doesn't work, you can check. There's a adjustable shunt transistor. You can quickly check to see if you got power there, if you choose to go this far with it. So we're going to take our meter, make sure we're on DC volts. We're going to go to ground. And the good news is these two wires that are part of the output of the power supply, the circuit board is marked. -V means ground. So we touch the ground there. And then we're going to go to this. We're going to check on the one side. And I get 11 volts. We're going to check the middle terminal of this transistor. It's probably ground. And we're going to check the other side of the transistor. And that's 2.4 volts. So that's obviously what it should be when it's working. Now, you might want to check your cable, make sure your wire's good. So you can always take your meter and go right to the wire itself that's on the circuit board. 12.52. So I know the power supply is putting out. I can take this, and it's going to be, if you want to know, pins 1 and 2 on here. 1 and 2 are where the power comes on. Let's put the meter in there and see which is which. Okay, 12.52. So pin 1 is ground and pin 2 is positive. Okay? So 1 is ground, pin 2 is positive. So that's what you got to, if you're going to use another power supply, that's how you got to hook it up to this plug. This plug obviously does come apart. So you can easily take it apart and put on another power supply. So those are some basic checks you can do. Like I said, check that fuse if it's blowing. You can kind of see the fuse better here a little bit down in there. Check your AC cord, plug in another one. If you got one off of a desktop or something laying around, you can plug in another one, make sure that's not it. But yeah, that's pretty much the basic checks. Again, you're probably better off just buying another power supply, going on the internet, looking up 12 volt DC 5 amp power supplies. It can be more than 5 amp. Just because a power supply says 5 amp does not mean it's gonna it can handle up to 5 amp. So if you find a power supply that says 12 volt 10 amp, that's okay, because the repeater is only going to draw what it needs. So you could have a 12 volt 100 amp power supply, and that's okay too, because again, the repeater's only going to draw what it needs. The rating on the power supply lets people know how much amperage this power supply can handle. And in this case, it's 5 amp. So if you need a new power supply, go to Amazon or go to eBay, type in 12 volt DC 5 amp or even 10 amp, and then see what they got for power supplies. And then you can always take your plug off if you can solder and put the plug on a new power supply, and then you're up and running. So that's probably the easiest way to do that. So at any rate, I thought I'd just do a quick video on this. If you have any questions or comments, please post them down below, and please subscribe. Thank you and have a good day.